Hey, hello there. It's me, Seth. Once again, I'm in my car. I don't really have any spaces that are just my own personal space, so um, I'm in the parking lot of a bank in Ozark. The book I'm going to be talking about is just like everybody else, the Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. It kind of felt like this book was sort of a conglomeration of all of the things that I've heard him speak about before, or maybe this is kind of like maybe all of his other work is kind of an extension of this. I'm not really sure um, which way it goes, but I know that it's based on decades of research with the Love Labs and with just his own personal practice and through therapy and things like that. So I'm going to kind of summarize the seven principles, summarize those seven essential conversations that go along with each of them, and just kind of talk about how that all affected me. The first part is just part one, like those first three chapters. So that first chapter, just what makes marriage work, which is such a simple sounding title for something that's really stumped hundreds of millions of people. But kind of the main driving point of that is just how Gottman sort of pokes holes in the idea that the healthiest marriages have the least amount of conflict. His point that he's making is it's not that healthy marriages have no conflict, it's that they have healthy conflict. It's not the couples who confront each other the least amount who have the least amount of conflict, it's the ones who handle that conflict most effectively, who navigate it well. Through this, he introduces those four horsemen: criticism, contempt, stonewalling, defensiveness, and he kind of explains how each of those show up in conversations, sometimes in tandem with one another. And another thing here is that positive to negative aspect ratio interactions, basically 5-to-1. It takes 5 positive interactions to counteract 1 negative one, particularly when they come during conflict. After that, chapter 2, just the truth about happy marriages. Well, that's the name of the chapter, but just more dispelling of common marriage myths. Avoiding conflict is not the point. It's more to manage it constructively. He emphasizes emotional intelligence, and he kind of picks on how husbands sometimes neglect growing emotionally and building a friendship as a part of their relationship. Talks about how healthy marriages, they don't have an absence of disagreements, just healthy ones. Similar stuff. It's those disagreements that are healthy that establish trust and help you to respect one another more, and it builds like a deep connection. Chapter 3, he introduces the 7 principles, sort of as a roadmap for healing or for developing a healthy marriage style. And they are all practical and based on his research, just strategies for couples to deepen their intimacy, manage conflict, and just find a shared sense of purpose. I'll get into these 7 principles here. So the first one is enhance your love maps. Your love maps are like the space in your brain that you allot toward storing knowledge about your partner and about your partner's world. Trying to understand their perspective, trying to understand their history, their family, the things that trigger them, the way they show up whenever they have been triggered, things like that. What do they prefer? I know another important thing was what is a current stressor for their life. Part of enhancing your love map is understanding not just where they came from, how they got to where they are, but how are they showing up right now? What is contributing to their current disposition through their emotions, through their cognitions, through things like that, just understanding them. He mentions many times, throughout the chapter, that couples with rich love maps handle stress better and are able to turn toward each other, like he talks about later. They're able to turn toward each other through times of struggle, times of conflict, and they stay connected during hard times rather than shutting each other out. So the second principle, nurturing fondness and admiration. It's kind of that idea that those rose-colored glasses, like that deep, like that really emotional feeling that you get for somebody when you first develop a romantic connection with them, is not what sustains you, and you actually have to work on finding ways to make that happen, to make that feeling grow, to nurture it. So one of the most protective parts of a marriage is just having deep respect and knowing how your partner receives affection most effectively. This is like expressing appreciation, recognizing when your partner does something that you really love, and then voicing it, like actually saying it. Noticing the good things about them even when you're upset with them. So maybe in conflict, you're able to say, hey, I appreciate, that you're not yelling at me right now, even though I know you're mad. Which may seem like a really small thing, but it helps you kind of wire your brain toward seeing this person not as the enemy during conflict, but like as your partner, even when they seem like they're the source of kind of what's causing you to feel yucky. Fondness and admiration are described as kind of the antithesis of contempt, of resentment. It keeps the communication lines very wired into one another so that expectations don't go uncommunicated, which fosters that contempt and resentment. So principle 3, turn toward each other instead of away from each other. This is where Gottman talks about those bids for affection. Just they are easily unnoticed. I know from a male perspective, they can go easily unnoticed. But it's just like those small ways that a partner reaches out to their partner to kind of ask to receive affection without just saying like, hey, can you give me affection? Like when a partner reaches to grab their other partner's hand, or things of that nature. And turning toward your partner is responding positively to these bids. This builds trust. It's really hard to trust somebody who is your source of outside affection when you reach out to them for affection and it gets denied. That's very damaging. That causes you to feel that you need to be independent completely in your relationship rather than trusting your partner to give you kind of that love that you're looking for. And so turning away, ignoring bids of affection, that kind of chips away at that connection and trust, especially once those rose-colored glasses come off and it's no longer just like the emotions aren't nearly as high. It's really easy for that to damage that connection. So principle number 4, let your partner influence you. Gottman mentions that the happiest marriages are ones where one partner is not in charge of the other. Neither partner feels that they need to be completely independent of one another, and it's a mutual respect, shared decision making. He really gets onto men in this one, which is great. He mentions that the studies show that men are especially resistant to letting their wives influence them. They prefer to be kind of the one who sets the standard, the one who makes the rules, things of that nature. And because of this, those marriages with those men are more likely to fail. So letting your partner influence you kind of reinforces the idea of partnership and like fosters a healthy dependence on one another for decision making and things like that. Principle number 5 is solve your solvable problems. So Gottman's big distinction here is between solvable and perpetual problems, something that seems like it would be obvious, but once you get into conflict with somebody, I know for myself, sometimes I feel like every problem is a solvable one. But his point is to take those problems that actually can be fixed and then find the solution. And those ones that maybe don't have a solution and rather are just problems that need to be dealt with effectively and in a healthy way, are completely different. So he talks about the soft startup. So easing your way into a discussion, beginning it gently rather than like, hey, I hate the way that you do this. It's more like, hey, I've noticed that when you load the dishwasher, you don't rinse any of the bowls off. That's what I do. I'm just curious about that. Something like that. And this ties back to the other parts, but accepting influence from your partner. If your partner brings a problem to you, not just saying like, all right, whatever, because that's defensiveness. That's also turning away. That's also denying influence. Like, you can see how it all ties together. Talks about repair attempts. So times where a rift is made or a rupture happens in the relationship because one or both partners turns away, stonewalls, denies bids for affection, is just overall dismissive of their partner, looking for ways to repair. Talks a lot about humorous ways to do that, like making light, making jokes, not making fun of your partner necessarily, but just recognizing the humor of something and keeping it light. This also ties into like self-soothing. At the end of the day, we're still responsible for ourselves and for our own emotions. And to avoid escalating a conflict, we have to, as an individual, know how to regulate. So number 6, overcome gridlock. This is like conflicts, basically most of the time conflicts that are just uncommunicated expectations, like I mentioned before, unmet needs that one partner is unaware of. And the goal here isn't to solve all these problems, but just to understand the meaning behind them so that you are no longer gridlocked, because this gridlock isn't something that you necessarily know that you're in until you discover it and you realize like there's a gap between the two of us. So number 7, create shared meaning. This one's really important. So successful couples are working toward a goal that's bigger than themselves. This is like, my mind of course goes to like spiritual things. It could be family traditions. It could be some couples build businesses together. It could be the children, things like that. And this kind of provides purpose for your life. And you see your partner as, a partner, but a member of that purpose with you. So each of these 7 principles has like one transforming conversation that Gottman also mentions, and I'll touch on that. I'm at like 13 minutes here. So building love maps. This is with the first principle, of course. This is open-ended questions. This is curiosity. This is the one about learning about your partner, about understanding their world. This deepens your understanding of one another. So since the first principle is about love maps, this conversation is like building it. It's a constructive conversation to literally construct a space in your mind for the love map for your partner. The second one is expressing fondness and admiration. So if the principle is to nurture fondness and admiration, the goal here with this conversation is to express it. He mentions in that second principle, in that chapter, just vocalizing these things, regular intentional compliments that are unique to your partner, that tell you and your brain, this is why I love this person, and then actually saying it to them so that they can experience that too. The third one, turning toward instead of away. A lot of these are practically just exactly what the principle says, but recognizing bids to affection, giving feedback to your partner about that type of thing, and allowing those tiny interactions to build on one another to strengthen your connection and build emotional trust. So number 4 is the positive perspective, making sure that you maintain an optimistic view of your partner, particularly of their intentions. The underlying factor here is like a strong friendship, that the husband and wife are friends. Husbands and wives who are friends with one another are more likely to interpret their partner's actions positively. Number 5, marriage conflict, just handling marriage conflict. Conversation has to do with those softened startups, repair attempts. Compromise is a big deal. That's part of letting your partner influence you. And then learning effective communication strategies. This, I think, ties back most importantly to like love maps. I think part of the love maps would be understanding how your partner communicates and learning with one another, maybe even teaching one another how to communicate with you. And that helps you understand, and you can focus on that understanding rather than focusing on winning, which is what Gottman talks about. Number 6, make your life dreams come true. So supporting each other's individual dreams and aspirations, even if they seem like they exist outside of the relationship, if they're not a hindrance to the relationship, make sure that you support your partner in that way is kind of the conversation. Once again, it talks about vocalizing those things, encouraging personal growth in your partner, challenging them. People in healthy relationships tend to get better as individuals, and that's kind of what this is about. And then number 7 is that creating shared meaning. So the conversation around discussing life goals, spiritual beliefs, family tradition, maybe goals about children. If you have children, your goals for their lives, things like that. And this is like huge for strengthening that unity and that long-term commitment. If you talk about this dream that you have, I say, me and my wife, we are going to build this family here. That reinforces the idea that we are in a long-term commitment, because children is a long-term commitment, that kind of thing. One of the last things I'm going to talk about here is just the biblical integration. I'll park on the first part about knowing your partner. The love maps. So Ephesians 5, of course, comes to mind, talking about wives, respect your husbands, and husbands, love your wives. I think sometimes that passage of scripture can get taken out of context to contradict Gottman's idea of letting your partner influence you, but I don't think it does at all. I think, I'll just speak from my end, as a husband, it's my job. I'm getting married in about a little less than 6 months, and I know that as a husband, it's my job to be an expert on my wife so that I can treat her with that love and respect. I think that has to do with love maps. 1 Peter 3:7 also reflects this idea, which is just living with each other and understanding. I'm not sure that it's talking specifically about spouses in that passage, but yeah. In Philippians, in a couple different places, but in Philippians 2, talks about looking to the interests of others. This, of course, applies to anybody you're in relationship with, but if your marriage is intended to be a friendship and it's intended to be a relationship, it just has the deeper aspects of romantic relationship. You need to be looking toward the good of others, doing things for the good of others, searching to live at peace with others, like Hebrews talks about, things like that. I think that just some of the Bible verses to that kind of overarch all of this is things about like just being patient, maybe like the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians, or things about being quick to listen, slow to anger in James. All of these things reflect what Gottman has discovered, and it's not that Gottman is the arbiter of this information. It's just that he is just proving God right with the information that we know in the Bible. And then, just for a little personal reflection and just to conclude here, I really enjoyed reading this book. I've read a lot of Gottman stuff in the past, and so I think it was familiar, which was helpful. It made it easier to read for me. I really appreciate it. It's very timely for me, considering that I'm getting married soon. It's something that the exercises in the book, like I'm going to go through those with Kirsten, my fiance. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to definitely hold on to it and make sure that I can reference it for my future patients. I think as a therapist, it will be very helpful to even just have 7 things that I can name referencing Gottman to say, like, here are different ways that marriage has worked for people in the past. So yeah, overall, that's what I've got. I enjoyed the book, so